Summer intern at Guide Technologies. I would like to thank everyone for attending today's Webex on the Guide product Scan and Track. During today's presentation, we will have two presenters. Our first presenter is Randy Kenney. Randy is a Guide Technology product manager who has over 25 years of experience with ERP consulting and implementation, project management, product management, and as a technology advisor. Our second presenter today is Jennifer Lalonde. Jennifer is a Guide Technologies application consultant who has over 15 years of experience in implementing ERP systems, demand flow manufacturing, and business system re-engineering. During today's presentation, all lines will be muted and questions can be asked by using the question feature in the Go webinar menu. All questions will be answered during the Q&A portion at the end of today's presentation. Also, today's Webex will be recorded and sent out after the Webex. Without further ado, here's Randy Kenney.
All right, thank you, Mason. I'm going to quickly go through from an overview standpoint some slides just to give you some background on what Scan and Track is and some of the benefits of it. We're going to spend most of the time today doing the product demo. We're going to go through some manufacturing order transactions, some purchasing transactions, warehouse movements, and a few others. We're going to show you the pick, ship, and invoicing capabilities that are built into the product. And we have some new features related to pallets that I'll show you briefly towards the end. And I think we'll have time to get through a customer case study just so you can see some of the benefits that were realized at one of the customers where we implemented this. But I do want to save 10 minutes at the end for Q&A, so we'll keep an eye on the time and be mindful of everyone's time and make sure we wrap up by 3 o'clock today. That's Eastern time, so good afternoon for those out here and good morning still for those on the West Coast. But without further ado, let me get into my slides, and I think most people will be interested in the demo portion of it, so we'll jump into that as soon as I give you some background here. So first of all, Scan and Track, for those of you who don't know, is a mobile platform, and we support all of the common transactions in XA, some of the uncommon ones as well, inventory and labor related. And we'll certainly show you some of those today so you have a good sense of it. We have full support in the product for pick, ship, and invoicing. And we do it as the functionality exists in green screen. If you've tried to do picking or shipping in PowerLink, that's still very, very limited as to what you can do. So we made the design decision to make sure that we did the functionality that exists in green screen, things like being able to ship from other than default stock locations from a packing area, being able to do back orders and things like that, partial shipments. So that's all supported within the product itself. The one unique thing I think about this product is that it is 100% system link based. That may be more for the technical people, but what that really means is that system link is part of the integrator tool set from Infor. It's essentially what XA is built in. So just like PowerLink and NetLink as user interface tools are built within integrator, system link is also part of that tool set. And it allows you to interact with XA from other systems like web browsers or Excel spreadsheets to extract data and to update data. So everything that we're doing within Scan and Track is 100% compatible with the way Infor has developed XA. And what that gives us is real-time transaction verification and transaction posting. There's no intermediate files or anything that has to be kept in sync. We're actually going to the XA database, and it's returning the same errors that you would get if you were sitting on the front of a PowerLink screen or even in front of a green screen for some of the things that we've done for the transactions that are not yet in PowerLink. We support those as well within Scan and Track. So if you were to get a warning or an error message in a PowerLink or a green screen session, you would get the same thing back on the mobile device in Scan and Track. But if it passes the edits, then it automatically posts it, and we'll definitely show you that today and how fast that interaction really is. It is a sleek, modern browser interface. It can be run from any device that can run a browser, basically. And today we'll be demonstrating it from a PC browser, but there's, basically any kind of scanning device, which is how it's typically used with a barcode scanner. It can be run from that mobile device. This is one of the real nice features, is that we typically we won't use any more than one XA license, which is really just for the system link connection back to XA. The product is licensed by device, not by XA user. So, again, we just need the system link user ID, which is probably already in place in your environment if you've done anything with system link to date. We have just added some new functionality. It's an add-on module, so it's optional. But if you do pallets and you need to manage pallets within your environment, we do have capability now to provide a lot of functionality there. I'll touch on that a little bit towards the end. We call that module pallet track. But we're going to do a separate webinar later in the year just on that functionality. But we'll at least show it to you so you can, if it's of interest, it may spark some interest to attend a future webinar on that product. And really what we try to do every time we implement this is within the product itself, there's certain best practice functionality that we'll show you. But we really try to implement best practices as well during the implementation with our customers. And in the customer case study, that'll be a good example of how we did that and really streamline the whole process of moving material in their operation and the visibility that they gained through the use of Scan and Track. So just some of the benefits here, a couple more slides, and then we'll get into the demo. But again, it's built in HTML5, which basically means it's any web browser. So any device that supports a web browser, we can run Scan and Track on, iPads, smartphones, of course, internet browsers from your PC, and any kind of barcode scanning gun that supports HTML5. System link transactions are actually XA transactions. So as I said before, it's not a third-party bolt-on. We're doing it just as if you were sitting in front of a PowerLink screen or a green screen. And we just implemented this at a large distribution center down in Jamaica, and their CIO, this was his quote, it says, Scan and Track really provides feet to Mapix. It's not a third-party application. It's making Mapix mobile, if you will. A lot of us still call it Mapix. So we get error messages that come back to the device itself, or the warning messages. And the idea is to eliminate errors in real time to improve inventory accuracy, which helps obviously the entire business. And you'll see that as we go through the demo today as well. We do have native support in the product for barcode labeling and design, or we have interface to other systems that you see here, IntelliChief, TL Ashford, Bartender. If you already have those in place, we can interface to those. But if not, we have capability within the product to print labels. It's done through HTML templates. So if you have someone on staff who knows HTML, it's a relatively easy exercise to change the way the labels look to fit your process. We can fully configure within Scan and Track who has access to certain XA transactions, as well as support obviously all the security rules themselves within XA based on who can get to what information. And on top of that, we have the ability to create badge groups. So if you have similar people that do similar things, whether it be in the picking area or receiving area or conveyance area, you can set them up as badge groups, which makes it a lot easier from a maintenance standpoint. Full support for barcoding and turnaround numbers. So if you have barcodes on your shop packets or other paperwork in your operation today, those can be used right with Scan and Track. And the labels that we generate, again, those can be designed based on what your needs are, but we use barcode labeling with them as well to help all the downstream transactions. We support on-premise, so this can be completely hosted on-premise, or we have the option if if desired, where Guide can actually host the web components if you don't have that expertise in-house. And this truly is a global solution because it's web-based, essentially. You can have multiple locations, physical locations, multiple iSeries, multiple environments, XA environments within an iSeries, and they can all be configured with a single install of the Scan and Track platform and managed centrally. But then you can control who has access to what environments and what transactions through the administrative panel within Scan and Track. So, and we're going to be going, I probably should make a comment before we get into the demo, but because this is a webinar and it's not completely interactive, typically when we do this with a customer, it's very interactive, questions and answers as we go throughout the demonstration. And we can certainly follow up with you to drill into any specific needs or functionality areas that you see as we go through the demo here. So, if that's of interest, you can contact us. I've got a slide at the end that has all of our contact information, and we'll be glad to set that up. But for now, what we want to do is actually get into the product demo and show you what it looks like and how it works, and hopefully that will spark some interest. So Jennifer, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay.
And you can take it away.
All right. So for ease of the demo, I have a spreadsheet that I've set up with some data to help me copy and paste information into Scan and Track. Scan and Track is going to allow you to either manually enter part numbers, manufacturing order numbers, scan MOs as well. And so to demonstrate that, I'm going to use the spreadsheet. This is the Scan and Track login. I can log in with a badge, or I can log in with my XA ID here. I'm going to use the badge number. So with Scan and Track here, I'm going to make it a little easier to see. These are all the various transactions that we have in Scan and Track. This screen here could be configured to include everything that you want. You can add or remove transactions. You can also set them up in the order that you want. As Randy mentioned, you can create groups for badges, and those groups can have specific transactions to the group of people using them. So a lot of the XA transactions are now available through Scan and Track, and it makes it really convenient. I'm going to start with talking about manufacturing orders. So I have a manufacturing order that I've created, and that manufacturing order has some floor stock code of C parts that are backflushed, and I wanted to show the way that process works. This is a turnaround number. If I go into manufacturing receipt here, or sorry, I wanted to go to do a pick. And manufacturing order pick complete. I can enter my turnaround number or my manufacturing number. And I only show 2 items. The reason I only show 2 items is because I have this item here and this item here to be picked complete. The other components get backflushed. I click continue. And this is letting me know I have 1 of 2 items to pick on this manufacturing order for this item. And then where do I want to pull the parts from? I can select where I'm pulling them from. It's going to default to the total quantity required. And then I click go. The next item has popped up. I see that it's now 2 of 2. I select where I'm pulling these parts from. My quantity of 5.
Jennifer, on this one, when you hit go, can you show the message that comes up at the bottom? Say it was
Sure.
successful.
So I now have a message to let me know that my manufacturing, I picked it successfully. If I go into XA and look at my transaction history, I can see that my components have been picked.
And just for a frame of reference, as far as kind of the infrastructure that we're demoing this in, Jennifer's work is in her home office in Oakland, California. This website that says snt.gtproducts.net is at a data center that we have in Los Angeles, California area, and it's tied back to an XA environment in Cincinnati on our demo box. So, you know, the speed at which all of that just happened is in that kind of an environment. Just as a frame of reference, this is to point out that it truly can be a global solution.
So for my next transaction, I'm going to go back to home, and I want to show what doing an RM would do. So receiving the manufacturing order. I can scroll down my list here, or I can also do the quick nav and just type in RM. I have my manufacturing order here, my turnaround number. Entering the turnaround number shows me the MO, the item that it's for, and how many I have to receive. I see that the transaction was successful, and if I go into XA, I see that my additional backflush components were addressed, as well as my RM. So that's an example of a manufacturing order. I also can do other transactions that we have within XA. I can receive a purchase part. Here I have a number of POs that I've tested, or that are in the test environment. And I can scroll down to find my transaction for a receipt. We have this option here that is receive purchased item. We've made Scan and Track have the ability to recognize if an item should be received to stock or received to inspection. Put in my turnaround number. It's letting me know that this is my item on that order. It's line number 4, the description of the item that's on order and how many I've received. I can receive a partial from here. And it lets me know that it's been received correctly. Go into transaction history. There's my transaction that I've received my order. If I go back in and type in the same line, the quantity is now changed from 50 open to 40. So it recognizes immediately that I have 40 that I could receive from this order. These reason codes can be set up to what you need, or they don't need to be used. transaction was successful. And already I see the transaction in XA. We've also developed some inquiries that can be done in Scan and Track. Oftentimes people want to know a location query. So what are all the parts that I can find in a specific location? The shortcut to that is LQ for location query. There's my warehouse defaulted in my location. I can do any of my locations to see where my inventory is at. So the nice thing about this screen, it's just like a PowerLink view and subset that allows me to know information about the warehouse, the item, batch, FIFO, quantity, allocated, available, and what the status is. So most of these items are approved here. I have some items that are waiting for manufacturing inspection. Another inquiry that we have is the item. So if I want to know where I can find an item, again, same idea. And these are just, we can create queries of any kind and make them available on Scan and Track.
And on this one, just to point it, if you notice the drop down, I think you were doing the pick complete or one of the transactions that had a drop down for the location to pick it from, and it was showing some of this information in that drop down. It's essentially within that drop down doing this query on the fly. So it's a pretty cool feature.
Again, you can see approved lots, expired lots. Our environment allows you to go negative, so you can see those locations as well. Transaction that's often used is a transfer. So you can do a TW from Scan and Track. Let me go to my So it's letting me know that my item was transferred successfully. And if I go into XA, I see that the transaction did move the inventory. I can use another item to show the same TW. Success again. And the inventory has been moved. Another transaction that we have that's popular is a IS. So if I wanted to do a component issue, My FIFO date. And enter a reference if I needed to add something. Lets me know that that was successful. Again, the transaction is transacted in XA immediately. We can do scraps as well. So a scrap from stock. No reason for that. I needed to add a reference, I could. My item's been scrapped, and the transaction happens the next day. We also have the ability to do shipping through Scan and Track. So with Scan and Track, if I do the pick list in XA, so I've gone ahead and created a couple of pick lists. And if I go to customer order pick request, some companies will pick parts by zone. And so we have this here for you to be able to have multiple people picking from the same pick list at the same time. For my example, I'm not using a zone. The top 3 orders are orders that are in process, somebody is working on. I'm looking for my specific orders that I'm working with. I selected my order. So I know that this item has, or this particular order has 3 items to be picked. Gonna have to verify the item, so I'm gonna copy it for simplicity's sake. I only have this item in one location. You can scan or type in your item. This also has the ability to suspend a pick list if you have to go to lunch or you're not able to finish it. So I'm going to save my pick to say that my first item is taken care of. It's moved on to my second item. And then save the pick. I'm now on my third item. So now that it's taken me back to the screen, I know that my entire pick has been addressed. I can go back to home. And if I'm ready to generate my shipment, this is the order I was working with. Oh, I apologize for that. So this is an error that comes up if basically it's telling me that this particular order wasn't picked. It's an XA error. Good example of what a real error would look like. Oh, sorry, it's 12578. Now this screen is just to do the transaction of shipping the item. If I'm ready to ship it, I'm going to put my carrier details in, put my tracking number in. If there's any additional information that I need to enter, similar to the XA screen. These are the items that are on my shipment. I can say my order is ready to invoice. If I wanted to print my packing list or bill of lading, I can select them. If I leave this blank, it'll just do the default from XA bill of lading number. I can do a pro forma, an invoice, or bypass from here. Generate my shipment. And 2578 is no longer there. Not that you would have your accounting group necessarily in Scan and Track, but you could generate your invoice from here. If I go into transaction history, my shipments have been done. And if I go into oh, actually, oh, here we go. 12578 has been invoiced. Today's date. And those are the transactions that I had for demo today.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. And just, because this is a webinar, this is obviously fairly scripted. If we want to do a personal demo, what we would do is find out exactly what functional areas or transactions are of interest to you and really do a deep dive into that. We'd show you, error messages and warning messages and different scenarios that you can get with Scan and Track. But in the interest of time, those are the ones we picked just to give you a flavor of, what it can do. and all the different screens and how it looks from the mobile device. And I'm going to flip it back to me.
Okay.
All right, so I wanted to go through, as I said, kind of a customer case study. We've got a little bit of time here, and hopefully this will maybe spark some issues that you can relate to, where Scan and Track might fit the bill, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So this was a particular customer in the Chicago area, and when we first got in there, they this was kind of what we mapped out as their as-is process at the time. And as we really talked to people and mapped out what they were, let me tell you the goal of what we were trying to do is when they received material at the dock, it took a long time for it to get from the dock location to actually being in the inventory. And they didn't have visibility to it until it was in inventory at the time. So, and there was a lot of different ways to get it from the dock to the inventory. So the goals were to not only make it so that it could get into inventory to be used much quicker, but also to provide visibility of where that inventory is from the moment it hits the dock all the way through whatever process it goes through. So this was what we kind of laid out. You know, you always do kind of an as-is first. And everything you see there that's in the red blocks and the lines is when inventory was actually being moved from the dock, but they had no visibility to it. It was inventory blind spots. And so that was the goal, was to eliminate those blind spots and to reduce the number of amount of time it took to get it into stock so it could be used. What we determined is, you know, during this process, their average days to stock for items that were not inspected was over 2 days. And for those that did go through inspection, it was over 4 days. So all of that time, they didn't know that the inventory was there, even though it physically was there. And a lot of what contributed to this is they had a lot of different people doing the RP transactions. They were doing it a lot of different ways and from a lot of different locations or workstations. So that created a lot of the issues that we saw in the 2B environment there. I mean, the as-is, sorry. And, you know, receiving a PO, doing the RPs is not a simple task. It impacts financials, it impacts the three-way matching against invoices. So it's something you want to have some control over. And they had, in this particular customer, we counted over 78 different ways that they got material from the dock to their inventory. They called line side inventory. And they had an annual volume from a transaction standpoint of the transactions to stock, the RPs, was over 52,000. The transactions to inspection, or the RIs, was almost 20,000. So a pretty healthy volume of transactions throughout the year. So we laid out a 2B process, implementing Scan and Track, having that in mind, obviously. And so what we did was, at the time they received material at the dock, they did a scheduled receipts. This was actually in PowerLink, scheduled receipts through PowerLink. And as soon as that happened, we then print a barcoded label that I'm going to show you on the next slide. And with that label, well, with the scheduled receipt, number one, we knew it was in the building, and with the label that printed, it's going to facilitate all of the downstream transactions to work. Basically, they could scan 2 barcodes and put it away, and they never lost visibility to it throughout the time it was received at the dock until it got into inventory in a usable state. So they do the scheduled receipt, prints out a label. Then what happens is, in their particular case, we look at the inspect on receipt flag, the IOR flag. And if it's a no, if it's not to be inspected, then we did an automatic RP, but that RP was to put it to a cart. And those carts were set up in XA as locations that were non-nettable. So MRP didn't see it, it wasn't planning it yet, but it gave visibility that it was in the building, and we knew exactly what cart it was put on, and you know that it's in the process of being conveyed, they had conveyance people that actually took those carts and put it away in stock locations. If it was set to go through inspection, we automatically did the RI. So that saved, in both cases, anyone from having to scan anything. And we did the RI of that item to a QC01 location. And then it sat there in inspection until they did the PQ transaction, which you can also do in Scan and Track. And so they would then tell the system how many parts were good and how many parts were rejected. And the rejected ones could go into a disposition area. The good ones got essentially, via the PQ transaction, put onto these carts. That's what these yellow triangles represent here. So it would go onto a cart. In their case, they had what they called value streams. So these different carts represented different value streams of where that material was going. And from there, then at the end, in either scenario, whether they went to the cart right away or through inspection, we have a transaction in Scan and Track called a put away transaction. And really all that was doing was taking the material from the cart, putting it into the location they identified, and in XA, it's a TW transaction. It was doing it behind the scenes as a TW. And we used this label right here as the means to do that very quickly and efficiently. So they're basically the same label. The only difference that you see is on one of them it says inspection required, very clearly identified, and the other one it doesn't. And it creates this barcode right here. So this barcode represents the PO that was received, the line item, the item, and the quantity. So this is generated from the receipt to dock. And then what happens is with that barcode label there, and then they had all of their locations, of course, barcoded. So when the conveyance cart got to where it was to be put away, they could simply scan this one barcode. It knew all of the information related to that product and that particular receipt and the location, and then scan the location that was barcoded at the rack there. And that was it. 2 transactions, and it was moved from the cart to the inventory, but you know, all the way along the lines, you could see in XA exactly where it was at. Things that went through inspection went through a very similar process. It's just obviously they did their inspection plans on it and determined what was good and what wasn't. And in that put away process, we did have the ability to change the quantity. So of 50, you scrap or rejected 5 and put them aside, and then it would print another label at that point of just the good ones. And then when they went to put it away, it was again just a scan. So very efficient, very easy on the operators, and yet we had visibility to the inventory at all times, and it improved their inventory accuracy dramatically. So again, this is when we went live. It was over a 2-week period, September 29 to October 14. This was a couple years ago with this customer, but during that time, we were tracking the results to compare back to what the goals were. And we had almost 2,400 receipts, or 216 per day during that 2-week period. Their goal was to get from dock to inventory in under 24 hours. And in that 2-week period, we went from non-inspected parts in 2.35 days to under 6 hours to get it from the dock into inventory. For items that went into inspection, again, these are averages, of course, the baseline was 4.25 days, and during that 2 weeks, it was under a day and 1.2 days. And the other thing we tracked was the number of errors. And for all of those transactions that were occurring, there was less than 10 that were in error. So a very small percentage were actually in error in this particular case. So a lot of when we implement Scan and Track, as I said at the beginning, we want to look at, you know, what is your process? What things do you want to improve? Take some baseline measurements and then utilize implementing the system to actually achieve the goals for process improvement. You know, you could just put you know, technology on top of existing processes, and sometimes that will make it faster. but we really feel that it's more beneficial that you look at it as a process improvement project as well, since you're already implementing new technology. So it's a good time to introduce a change because you're changing the process anyway. So we always try to do that. You may have best practices in your organization today. You know, that'd be something that if we get into a deeper discovery with you, you know, we can make some recommendations, or you may have goals already in mind of how you'd want to improve your processes. And as part of implementing Scan and Track, we can really help facilitate that. We've seen that time and time again. And so that's just one customer example. We're going to open it up to Q&A here soon, but I did want to have a slide in here. Just I'm hoping that everyone is planning to attend the XA User Group Conference in Chicago in October. It is, in my opinion, the premier event for XA customers during the year. I mean, lots of great sessions, lots of great networking. Guide will be there, of course. And we do a lot of sessions, other channel partners, but the ones that are really good are the ones that are put on by customers, and just a lot of great networking. I think it's because it's national. It's, you know, anyone can attend. It really is, I think, one of the best events of the year, and hopefully everyone will be there and we'll see you there. But one other thing I did want to mention, because someone texted me while we were doing this, say make sure to mention that these transactions don't go through TR data. So with Scan and Track, what we've done is we have come up with some integrator magic, if you will, to allow us, as I said at the front, everything we do in Scan and Track is 100% system link based. So what we had to do was build some objects and, you know, a little more than that, but did some things in integrator, so that for the vast majority of those transactions that we have there, they do not use TR data anymore. And people who have been dealing with that for many, many years are probably cheering right now. But so I guess with that, I think that's all I had. Let's go ahead and see what kind of questions we have.
All right, we had a couple come through during the presentation. First one being, what types of barcode label templates are available with Scan and Track?
Okay, that's a very good question. Let me actually, so within Scan and Track, we have some labels that we've created, which can be modified based on your needs. But we basically have the receiving labels that you saw as part of the case study I just showed you. That's a template. We also have pallet labels, or license plates, if you will. If you're doing the pallet management. And that's the other thing I forgot to mention is these top 8 transactions here are related to our new pallet track product. And so just briefly, I won't go into it in detail, but this will allow me to show you a label too to answer that question. We can do an inquiry, and if I go and look up a particular pallet, of course they'd be scanning this. Everything you saw today would, for the most part, be scanned with barcodes. We wouldn't be keying it in. So here's an example of a pallet out here, and it's telling you all the different products that have been, you know, received onto this pallet. Basically, you can see a variety of MO numbers. There's a purchase order, different batch lots, expiry date. We track everything down to batch lot, expiration date, FIFO, all of that within the product. So there's an inquiry capability. You build up pallets doing receipts and so forth to create it. And again, we're going to have a whole nother session on this. You can do pallet movements from one location to another, and that moves everything that's on that pallet within XA in one transaction to the new location via TWs. The pallet process, you can take a pallet and you can break it down. So we use this when they're picking product to go on a customer order. So, you know, you may have different product from multiple pallets that you're basically building either a new pallet or a truckload or something of that nature. And so the LP process gives you the capability to do that, to take items from certain pallets. And within Pallet Track, it keeps track of where all the inventory is as you're doing this. You know, we also have the ability to print pallets. if they need to reprint. Now, when you're actually at the end of a manufacturing line or when you're doing receipts against POs, it'll print it automatically, but you can always reprint a pallet. So I'll just give you that since that was one of the questions that was asked. All right, so now I just flipped over to the admin section. We didn't really cover this, didn't have time for it today, but there is a full admin section in here where you create locations, which represents different XA environments, wherever they might happen to be. You set up printers. It's got some license management. This is where you set up your badge groups that we talked about earlier and what transactions they have access to. And you can also look at your print jobs. So looks like I had printed some earlier today, but so this is the pallet label that I just generated, 70, just to give you an example of what it looks like. So again, for this particular customer, this is what they needed on their pallet labels. What's on here can be very easily customized, but it facilitates scanning. So here's your LPN, license plate number, is what they called it. And then the different line items that are on that particular pallet. And what this is actually pretty cool because this is essentially think of it like a turnaround number, although it's not a turnaround number in XA, but it ties, you scan that, then it automatically knows what pallet it's on, what the item is, and what the quantity is that's on that pallet. And then so when they do that breakdown of pallets I was talking about earlier, they just scan that number and it knows all the rest of the information. They put in the quantity they're taking off the pallet and it updates the new pallet and reduces it from the old pallet. So that's an example, another example of what we can print. We have some rack labels here. So if you can use Scan and Track to print barcode labels for your racks if you don't already have racks barcoded or locations barcoded. And so that would be like location labels. So those are the things that come out of the box with it. We can, again, part of the implementation always is what kind of labels do you need? Where do you want to print them? How do you want them to look? Where do you want to use barcoded input? We look at, what kind of devices you're going to be using, which is screen size, form, fit, and function. There's a lot of things that go into actually implementing it to make it very easy to use on the floor. So it's kind of a long-winded answer, but hopefully that addressed that question.
Okay. We had another one that just came through asking for you to tell us a little more about the job on and job off functionality.
Okay, so we have, as you saw, probably we didn't have time to get in and demonstrate it, but within Scan and Track, there is the ability to do job ons and job offs as it relates to manufacturing order operations. In fact, we're implementing that right now with a customer out in California, and so same capability you would have to do it in Green Screen XA. We can do it in Scan and Track as well.
Okay. Let's see here. I have a question. If we have multiple environments supporting multiple physical locations, can we restrict which users can access the different environments?
Yes, very much so. So it's all controlled again through this admin section here. In fact, I think I have one I can show you. So basically you have locations. Each one of these represents a different XA environment wherever. These are actually 3 different physical locations. We then have badge groups for those environments. You can see in this one, I've got, this badge group, and this is the one we were using today that Jennifer logged in with. And within those badge groups, you identify what transactions they have access to. So not only can you lock it down to what environment they have access to, but also within that environment, what transactions they can see. So in this case, this is a different one. It's to the same environment. We've got one user that's assigned there, and you can see they have only a subset of the transactions. So it's very flexible to control it that way. And if I'll go out here and I'll log in as Jeff instead of me. The only reason I add that last digit, it's a check digit because I'm typing it in versus scanning it in. But you can see, so when that person logs in, they only see the transactions you saw. And then of course the locations, the badge groups are by location. So that's how you limit them in a multi-environment and physical location situation.
Great. With that, I don't see any more questions coming through. Unless Randy, you have any other final words? I think we'll wrap up today's webinar. Okay, yeah, we're right about on time. That's always good. Let me just, so there's a variety of different ways. Here's my email, Jennifer's email, to our website, YouTube, any of the social media channels. We're present on all of them. So if you want to, demo customized for you and more interactive, please let us know. And I think this recording is going to be on our YouTube channel, correct, Elsa? Yes, it will. Okay, very good. We'll send it out after the next following days. Okay, perfect. All right, well, thanks everyone for your time today. Appreciate it, and let us know if we can provide any more information. Thank you for joining.